Hello and welcome to another week on my allotment. And like the last one, this video will be a collection of clips that I've taken through the week. And the week started in glorious hot sunshine. Actually it was last weekend, and we did a little more patch painting on the shed and a little bit of routine maintenance around the allotment, and my son was up here to help me, and it was glorious, baking hot. In fact, Daniel was set out in the sun there on a deck chair. And how the week has changed. It is really wet. I mean, actually the sun is shining now, but we keep getting heavy showers, and the forecast is for rain every day for the next 2 weeks. And so on the allotment all the watering has stopped. Don't have to water anything now, which is good news. But of course things like squashes and the courgettes and so on will stop growing now, I think, because the temperatures are dropping and the sunshine is disappearing and everything's getting wet and damp, and I don't want stuff rotting. So a real shift, and I'll put all these bits of video together, and later on in the video, in a few minutes, I'll be talking a little bit more about health, and I make no apology for that. I just think that's something that I can add to the debate, and it's all linked to food because our health is directly related to the food we eat, and allotments are a no-lose situation. They're a wonderful thing to have, and ever since man started growing crops, we've grown our own, and it's only in the last few years since the Second World War that we've stopped growing our own food and we rely on others for it. And of course, as with anything in life, when you rely on other people, you take a risk, and so the food we eat today is not what it should be. So health and allotments are inextricably linked, so I make no apology for it. I'm not trying to be controversial. It's not my opinion. Nothing I say, or little of what I say, is my opinion. It's stuff I've researched. It's all out there in the scientific literature. Please feel free to do your own research and look into it. But knowledge is an important thing, and you know, if you only get your information from the mainstream media, you miss out on so much truth. So again, I make no apology for it. I hope you find it interesting. I'm not trying to upset anybody or be controversial. I'm just trying to impart knowledge and give another side of the argument from the mainstream media. So, you know, watch it. Make up your own mind. You don't have to listen to what I say. Do your own research, and I will continue to do these little chats about what I have discovered, and I shall move the topic about. And I genuinely hope you find it interesting. And if you don't, you'll switch it off. So we go away very shortly now for a few days. In fact, more than a few days, to Dartmoor. The forecast is foul, but then it wouldn't be Dartmoor if it wasn't raining. So I'm really looking forward to that. A few days of relaxation in the caravan and a bit of walking in the fresh air. The allotment can manage on its own. I have no worries about watering anything because the rain's going to do that for me. I have started looking at next year, as I've mentioned before, and I'm now growing some broad beans, the ones that you can overwinter, hopefully. Behind the shed I've placed some red and white onions in seed trays to start them off, to get the root system working, and that's already happening. And I'll leave them there till I get back, and then I'll plant them, and I'm already looking to next year to have crops ahead of schedule. And I've picked the last of the raspberries and the blackberries, the last of the courgettes, and I've picked some of Bridget's tomatoes, which she's strung up and told people to help themselves. So thank you very much, Bridget. I've done just that. So I'll hand over now to the rest of the video, and of course it's going back to earlier in the week when it was glorious sunshine, so it's all a little bit back to face, but I hope you enjoy it. Daniel is revisiting the plot, and inevitably when you paint a shed the wood moves, expands, contracts, etc., and you get little bits exposed that haven't got the stain on, so he's patch painting. Good man. butternut squash. Oh, dear. And they say young people are disconnected from nature. Right, I've moved the Atlantic Giant. Well, actually Barry and I moved it. I was going to cut it off, but Barry convinced me not to because he doesn't think the competition's over yet. So we've moved it because I wanted access to what I thought was a compost heap. Turns out it's just a big pile of mud. I'm not quite sure. That must be more stuff left over from when I got the second plot sorted, because it is just soil. So Daniel, who's up here helping me today, thank you Daniel, I'm giving him all the jobs I don't like doing. So he's transferring it through that grid, riddling it, which I think is the term, to produce some finer soil, which I'm now putting in those empty barrels for my carrots next year. So we'll make something of it. And then what doesn't go through the riddle, he's putting on the current working compost heap. But you can see there's a lot of couch grass roots left in it, but eventually they rot down. Everything rots down eventually. It's so close. Well, compost bin emptied, and now Daniel's got some organic cow muck, and that's being put in the bottom before I start refilling it. A job well done. And the new carrot tubs are now refilled with nicely riddled and sieved soil and covered to keep the rain out. Wow, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday it was absolutely boiling hot, lovely up here, nearly 30 degrees. Today it's still warm, but it has rained, and boy did we need it. However, this shot is for Betty, just to reassure her, as if reassurance was needed, that those tea bags are very, very close to my gas cooker. the emergency tea bags she brought up here to give to me after I lost or didn't have any tea bags. So don't worry, Betty, those tea bags are in the new shed and very, very close to the kettle in case they're needed. Well, as I've just said, it's not actually raining now, but it has rained some in the night. All my water butts at home have been filling nicely, and so have the ones here, the ones that are drip fed off of this shed. So we actually need this weather. There's nothing much I can do on here today. The weather's pretty grim. And I've just come up to check on things and empty the water butts and distill them into the bigger troughs. So while I'm up here, and it's a quiet allotment day, if you don't mind, and please don't switch over now, but I'd like to read you the preface or the preface from this book, How Not to Die. And you know, I don't eat meat, I don't eat anything that comes from an animal if I can avoid it. And there was a reason for that. I watched a documentary about 3 or 4 years ago now, and it said all the harm that dairy does and drinking milk and how it causes osteoporosis. And I thought, that can't be right. I've been told my whole life that drinking cow's milk builds strong bones. And of course, there's never been a study in the history of nutrition science that has found a link between drinking cow's milk and protection of bones. Never been found. It's purely marketing. Turns out it's just like the advert used to be on the telly when I was a younger man. A Mars a day, which for those who don't live in England or Britain is a chocolate bar. A Mars a day helps you work, rest and play. Turns out if you ate a Mars bar every day, you'd end up fat and unable to play or work. It's marketing, and so it transpires with cow's milk. Actually, the 4 countries in the world that consume the most dairy are the 4 countries in the world with the highest rates of osteoporosis. And that led me down a road, and it's got me to where I am now. And we don't consume anything that comes from an animal. And we are a lot healthier for it. And I wanted to read you this bit from, excuse the glasses, they're not even mine. I've given them in a fishing hut. But they work for me, so they're not designer, and I look stupid in them, but I can read. So this is Dr. Michael Greger, who wrote a New York Times top 10 best-selling book, and as I've said, it is almost the best book I've ever read. It all started with my grandmother. I was only a kid when the doctors sent her home in a wheelchair to die. Diagnosed with end-stage heart disease, she had already had so many bypass operations that the surgeons essentially ran out of plumbing. The scarring from each open heart surgery had made the next more difficult until they finally ran out of options. Now, a lot of people might recognise that. That's going on every day in hospitals all over the Western world. Confined to a wheelchair with crushing chest pain, her doctors told her there was nothing else they could do. Her life was over at age 65. I think what sparks many kids to want to become doctors when they grow up is watching a beloved relative become ill or even die. But for me, it was watching my grandma get better. Soon after she was discharged from the hospital to spend her last days at home, a segment aired on 60 Minutes about Nathan Pritikin, an early lifestyle medicine pioneer who had been gaining a reputation for reversing terminal heart disease. He had just opened a new centre in California, and my grandmother, in desperation, somehow made the cross-country trek to become one of its first patients. This was a live-in program where everyone was placed on a plant-based diet and then started on a graded exercise regimen. They wheeled my grandmother in and she walked out. I'll never forget that. She was even featured in Pritikin's biography, Pritikin, the Man Who Healed America's Heart. My grandma was described as one of death's door's people. Francis Greger, from North Miami, Florida, arrived at Santa Barbara as one of Pritikin's early sessions in a wheelchair. Mrs. Greger had heart disease, angina and claudication. Her condition was so bad she could no longer walk without great pain in her chest and legs. Within 3 weeks, though, she was not only out of her wheelchair, but was walking 10 miles a day.
Just think about that for a moment. All those people on medication in the modern health service where heart disease only goes one way. And indeed, on the front page of the NHS's website on heart disease, it says, and I quote, "Heart disease cannot be cured, but it can be controlled with the right medication." This is in the 1970s. This science has been around for decades, and yet still we give open heart surgery, stents, which statistically make no difference to any further heart events. I don't understand it. When I was a kid, that was all that mattered. I got to play with Grandma again, but over the years I grew to understand the significance of what had happened. At that time, the medical profession didn't even think it was possible to reverse heart disease, and actually our NHS still doesn't. Drugs were given to try to slow the progression, and surgery was performed to circumvent clogged arteries to try to relieve symptoms. But the disease was expected to get worse and worse until you died. Now, however, we know that as soon as we stop eating an artery clogging diet, our bodies can start healing themselves, and in many cases opening up arteries without drugs or surgery. Anyway, it goes on, and I won't, but I don't understand. Well, I do understand, it's money, but this is, you know, that Nathan Pritikin program, which was a sort of a forerunner and has been done by many people, including Dr. Dean Ornish and Caldwell Esselstyn. All these people are American. I don't know about Great Britain. I haven't found any signs of this being done in Britain, but the science is really old and it's very conclusive. It's a done deal. We don't need to talk about it anymore. I don't understand. If, you know, a lot of people like eating meat, and I understand that. I used to. There's nothing quite like the smell of a Cornish pasty or a bacon sandwich. But if you've got heart disease, don't you think it would be right if you said to the person, right, look, we've got two options here. You can carry on doing everything you're doing, which has led to serious heart disease. We can operate, we can open up your chest and cleave it open and take an artery from your leg and sew it in around the heart. And in the future you will just need more of those, because that's not dealing with the root cause, which is the amount of saturated fat that's clogging your arteries with atherosclerosis. So that's one option. The second option, you, the patient, take control of your life. You change your diet and lifestyle, and you reverse the heart disease you have. Now, I know there are enough people around that if given those options, they'd say, ooh, I don't think I could give up my bacon sandwich. I'll go the route of the ever worsening heart disease, and you can open up my chest, please. And I know that, and that's their right. But there are enough people around who'd say, right, I can actually reverse this. Okay, I'll go the diet route, and we'll give that a go. Let's give that a go first, and start to eat whole food, plant-based. But you don't get that option. You don't get that information. And of course, doctors, I've heard from customers of mine who, you know, most of them are sick. I've heard that they've said, whatever you do, don't go on the internet. It's full of quackery and false hope. You know, and that's true. There's lots of it about, as there is in every walk of life. But if you sift through the rubbish, there is genuine cures for all these modern diseases, including cancer, diabetes. Diabetes is a scandal. Diabetes can be cured in days, and yet people are losing their sight, losing their legs and feet, and it's, you know. Anyway, it's enough of my rant, but again, I endorse that book. And if you've got some serious Western chronic disease, which is a disease of diet and lifestyle, if that's the cause, the cure, guess what, is in diet and lifestyle. Anyway, I've ranted long enough on this wet, miserable day. I'm going to make a cup of tea, and it doesn't have cow's milk in it. Actually, now I think about it, I haven't quite finished. One other thing, I had to laugh. It's not funny, it's tragic, but if you look at the NHS website again and you go to heart disease and it tells you that it can't be cured and that you need medication. And the doctors know the medication doesn't attempt to resolve the core issue of what's causing it. They have recipes for you to help yourself, which is perfectly noble. And then when you go through it says heart healthy recipes, beef so and so, chicken so and so, pork so and, you know. You think, well, I'm speechless. Either you've never read the science, and don't forget, for decades doctors not only endorsed smoking as a way of calming your nerves, they advertised it on television. So, you know, they've got form on this, but just read the science. There's no issue now. The debate is over about heart disease. We know what causes it. And yet you go to the NHS and they're telling you, you know, eat beef. I don't know. Anyway, I don't eat beef. I eat whole foods, and they're plant-based, and I grow them on my allotment. And so that's the way to go. Sorry about the rant. I just think I've got so many customers who have almost weekly appointments with their doctors, and that's why the NHS is sinking. And you know, they keep saying we need more money, we need more money. You don't take a bottomless bucket and just keep throwing money in it, saying I can't fill it. We need to throw more money in it. Stop throwing money in a bottomless pit. Start curing people by using nutrition. The biggest secret in medicine, and it is the most incredible secret, is that if you get out the way, your body can cure itself. Your body's the only thing on the planet that can cure you. Your body. You've just got to stop doing it harm 3 times a day. Anyway, you haven't come here for me ranting, have you? You come here for me talking about the allotment. But it's all linked. Every action you take, every time you put something in your mouth, you are making a decision to feed your body the best nutrition, which is medicine, the best nutrition your body can get, or you decide to poison it. And it's your choice. That's the last freedom we have, is what you eat. Nobody can tell you what to eat. They can suggest it, and they do. You will never see anything healthy advertised on television to eat. In fact, I've said before, that's one of the very best ways to start leading a healthy life, is anything on television that's advertised, don't consume it. That's a pretty good start point. Now it's raining, and it's raining quite hard. And I'm loving it because I am fed up watering everything. It's been lovely having this lovely weather, but after a while, you know, this will really soak down into the ground. It rained all last night, and we've had a few lulls this morning, but it's really raining again now, and I'm so pleased. So I think for the week, if you haven't already switched off because of my ranting, I think I'll call that it for the week, and stick with all the lovely weather and the clips yesterday. And we go away shortly for a week on Dartmoor. So if there's a gap, you'll excuse me, but we're having a lovely week walking on Dartmoor, and I think this weather forecast is set to stay. So I think there might be mutiny in the ranks when we get there from Cheryl, but we'll see. I'm really looking forward to it. So we'll see you, it will be over a week's time now, probably nearer 2 weeks, while we have a little bit of time off, and I'm really looking forward to it. And you know, if we get some weather and reasonable weather, and I'm able to do a few shots of it, for those of you especially who live abroad, I'll show you a few clips of us on Dartmoor, and even it might show you a few clips of the caravan. So Mick, do the right thing and buy Deborah a caravan. You know you need to. So see you again soon. Thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you back on the allotment shortly. Bye for now.